Okay, so last class we worked on TFL engagement in order to do more anterior tilt, which can help us tip forward more in our forward folds, and then eventually we added on the spinal flexion by activating the abdominals and doing a rounded position of the back. Okay, and again, I mentioned that it's best to do that once you're in your fullest anterior tilt, once you're in your deepest hip flexion, then to round the back. What's also cool is if you activate the muscles to do spinal flexion, once you're in your deepest forward fold, if you activate into spinal flexion, it tips you back into posterior tilt again, because part of what helps you do spinal flexion is the abdominal muscles, and it's that when the abdominal muscles contract, it pulls the pubic bone up, which is posterior tilt. So you go into your depth of forward fold at your pelvis, and then you activate your abdominals, and it takes you a little bit out of that depth of forward fold in the hips, which is a good thing because you don't want to sit at the end range in full anterior tilt while you're in a long hold posture, because you could damage the soft tissue at the hip joint. So it's really good. You go in there, you go with your deepest amount of depth using your hip flexors and so on, and then when you do spinal flexion, it balances out the efforts of the TFL. So there's a lot that we do the way that I teach the practice that creates contradicting muscle engagements. And at first people get a little confused because what happens is, I might offer you something that increases depth, but then I might also then offer you something that decreases depth, and people get confused. Well, is it this or this? And the answer is it's both. And the reason why is, yes, we want to have deeper range of motion, and we want to be able to articulate our joints to the fullest capacity, but we don't necessarily want to bully our joints in that way where we would press into them hard and keep them there, and because that would deteriorate the joint, it would injure ourselves. So we have to learn both movements, the going in and out, and then we have to be able to, at any given point in time, if we want to keep our body safe, to go deeper into something and then hold a muscular engagement that actually pulls us out of that posture. And that's very hard for most people to comprehend. They just want to do this or that, not a do this and that, because do this and that requires a lot more brain power, a lot more focus, a lot more attention and coordination. But when you do it, when you're able to eventually coordinate contrasting muscle engagements, or you can balance opposing opinions in life, when you can really embrace the two sides of life itself, but in this case of muscular engagement, then you find that there's actually a great deal of freedom, because now you have full control. You can engage the muscle to deliberately go deeper, and you can also deliberately engage a muscle to the opposite muscle to come out of it a little bit. So now you're in control of your body's muscular engagements and your joint articulations, and you can make choices that better serve you and your well-being. All right, so today, hey Kim, nice to have you here, welcome in. So today we're going to be focusing in on lateral flexion or side bending, and this is a real point of passion for me, because I see most of the time when people do side bends is they do something called lateral deviation, where they just kind of move the vertebra to the side rather than doing an actual side bend. So a lot of people you'd see in Reverse Warrior, they would just literally laterally deviate. They'd move the rib cage to the side and lift the arm up like this. That's number one, where they just kind of move everything off to the side. And then they might lift up the pelvis and it looks like a side bend. But if you look at the actual spine, it's more or less flat on a diagonal. It's just off on a diagonal rather than actually bending like a curve. Think of, many of you have done back bends with me. I give you the imagery of a bow as a bow and an arrow. So when you pull back the string of the bow, it increases this circular or half moon-like shape, right? This half circle increases its depth, but it's bowed, it is circular, it is not jagged. And that's kind of what we want to do with our spine, not like just shift it over on an angle and then move our pelvis and feel like we're doing side bending. We want to do lateral flexion of the spine. So actually, what needs to happen, by the way, here's what a lot of people do as well. The other thing that people do is they move the rib cage just down to the hip and fall to one side. okay? And that works, but you're gonna compress rib and hip towards one another, and you'll probably feel a weird sensation in your back that's not so comfortable. So there's like falling over, and then there's lateral deviation, like diagonally just shifting the vertebrae over, neither of which is our focus for today. So if we are to bend the spine, lateral flexion, then what we need to do is not lean to the side that we're flexing, but actually lean to the side away from. So if this is the area we're flexing, we want to lean away from that side. And then like a steering wheel, the bottom or the middle even kind of goes forward like this, while the side goes up, and then the top will go over, right? So you can see that this is a sliding of the rib cage to the opposite side. And you can see now a lifting of the rib cage over here on the side that's lengthened. And that creates a real nice spinal bend or flexion versus here. Versus here. Can you see how much different? Look at my shirt. So here versus here. So you have to move there's a couple of reasons for this. One, yes, it's the bowing of the spine. What happens is your vertebra move to the opposite side and then open up like clamshells on that side. They open up on that side, and that creates a lengthening. But two, when you go this way, you're essentially saying, gravity, just take me down. And gravity compresses the spine and it pushes the ribs into the hips, and you get this kind of like weird twingy feeling because it's not supposed to be like that. But instead we want to slide the ribs inside of the pelvis. So we slide to the opposite direction, then lift and open. And a slight, typically, there's many ways to do this, but a slight back bend can help increase your side bend as well. Okay, so we're gonna go off to the side, shifting the rib cage away from the side that's bending. So if I'm flexing my left side, meaning I'm shortening, not compressing, shortening the left side, then it means I want to slide everything to the right. And now we have a nice side bend. Slight back bend will give me a little more space to slide the ribs under inside the pelvis here. Okay? Hopefully this is clear. We're going to be using, of course, on the one side you're using your obliques and everything, but you're also using, and I think it's more important for this, why a little bit of a back bend helps, is you're using these unilaterally, meaning there's back muscles on the right side, back muscles on the left. When they there's a lot of them, so I'm not going to go through them. But when they activate both sides, you create a spinal extension, the back bend. But when you let one side relax and activate the other side, then you get spinal lateral flexion. So we're engaging not just the core muscles for lateral flexion today, of course we will, but also the back muscles. And why I find this is really important, and I think it's really powerful to set up this immersion for class number 2 with lateral flexion, is it's going to strengthen, of course, your back muscles, your side oblique muscles and everything. But more importantly, it's going to awaken and give you this spaciousness and unlock the rib cage away from the pelvis, so that when we go to do back bends and twists, you're gonna have a lot more range of motion. Basically what I find is that increasing the strength of lateral flexion and increasing the distance of the opposite side of lateral flexion, I call it extension, but it's not anatomically correct. The side that is lengthening, increasing that length while increasing the strength from this side really seems to have a really profound effect on people's back bending and twisting. It creates more depth. And that's probably because you're using all the same muscles. When back bending, you're using these all these back muscles, except you're using them bilaterally. And when you're twisting, you're using these oblique muscles, but you're using them, I don't want to get too deep, but opposite sides of the body. We'll go in the twisting class, we'll get there. But essentially, it's very supportive. I have a slight scoliosis in my spine. Any tips as one side is tighter? Well, I do too. I have a scoliosis in my spine as well. It is slight, I guess, but it's fairly obvious. You can even just see The shoulders are much different. But I don't treat, how do I put this? I don't treat my back any differently. The actions are the same, and what I'm just tuning into is wherever I'm tight. So if I'm, and this is the hard part, is it's not just like, oh, I'm tight on this side and I'm weak on this side. The spine doesn't really, most scolioses aren't just one C curve, like the whole spine goes that way. If that's you, if you just have a C curve, then yes, you probably really need to work on lengthening the other side and shortening this side and laterally deviating. The actions are the same. But most people have more of like an S, where the body kind of counter deviates, so it tries to balance itself out. If it's moving more this side, then it moves more this. So what you got to do is like feel into the different areas of the back and figure out what's not moving and create movement, and what is moving, try to do less. And the only way to do that really is first learn the mechanics of these lateral flexions, and then learn to sense or feel the different vertebra. And the only way to do that is by like visualizing and then trying to actively put your attention. Eventually your, I would say, nervous system is able to sense or feel how the vertebrae are moving. It's very rare that we can feel bones, but we can feel the muscles that surround the bones, and we can feel when bones are kind of colliding because they're pinching on nerves. And you can more visualize your spine over time, and that visualization can really tell you what's happening internally. And I think we're able to visualize through the nervous system, really focusing its attention on that area. So it has to feel the muscles surrounding it. It has to feel the soft tissue. The fascia is probably playing a huge role in our ability to interocept our spinal column. But you have to, there's no real shortcut other than doing it and keep putting your attention on it, doing it and putting your attention on it. That eventually gives you like this internal sight into your spine, and you can feel where the tensions are, where you're not moving, and you can deliberately start to move there more freely. Sometimes it's really helpful to film yourself, to watch videos of yourself, and then to assess afterwards. Like you can look and be like, oh, look, my left shoulder is hiked up, my right shoulder is down. And that kind of is a little bit, I'm sure there's some shoulder imbalances, but it's also indicative of my upper thoracic has a bit of a curve like this, placing the left shoulder up higher. So I can pull the left shoulder down, but also I can do a slight lateral bend on to the left. But in my yoga practice, I'm not just going to do everything like this, because essentially my body knows how to counterbalance itself out. What I want to do is teach my spine to move and discover the available movements for myself, where the tensions are, and then you can start to work through your yoga practice, and then your posture changes as a result of repetitive practice and body awareness conditioning. Okay, so your posture will change with practice and increased awareness of how to move internally, not just big movements, but these micro movements. All right, let's get into it before we run out of time. Just blabbing on about my passion for side bending, because I guess it's just not really taught, and so I'm just delighted to take this time. And I haven't even taught really side bending since I don't know, it was like June, I think, of 2020. So here we go. We're going to start in child's pose, arms out in front. And part of the reason why side bending is so hard is because the muscles that attach to the shoulders, like the latissimus dorsi, also attach to our pelvis. So where our shoulders go, it moves our pelvis and tends to be fairly tight, especially the lats tend to be tight. And we have all these muscles of the core, the back, that run all the way up and down the spine. We've got muscles like the trapezius that attach to the tops of the shoulders and neck and all the way down towards the low back. Okay, we've got all these interesting connection points and fascial webs, of course, that tighten up the distance between our ribcage and our pelvis. And we're just here for this Spinal Awakening immersion to free up some space. So let's do just that. See if you can
take your right hand and tent it onto the fingertips, and you're going to crawl the right hand further forward and try to get longer in the whole right side of the body. Then left fingertips tent, and then crawl your left fingers forward, try to get longer in the left side of the body. I suggest lifting the armpits up away from the ground. Okay, you may not feel a stretch or anything, but you're trying to get longer and longer, and that's really the important thing. Okay, now let's increase the stretch by sliding the middle of our ribs towards the right thigh. So place your ribs more on your right thigh, and then walk your hands over to the left. Now, as you walk your hands over to the left, it's going to be very tempting to lean your ribs on your left thigh. Just know that that would be a movement of your pelvis. You're actually going to try to side bend or laterally flex by sending your ribs over to the right thigh. So your ribs go to the right thigh while your hands go to the left, and that's going to create more lateral flexion. Okay, some of you can even hike your left hip slightly up and press your right hip down and press into your right middle ribs, like bow the center of the rib cage to the right. Breathe into your right side. Okay, come back to center.
Bow the center of the ribs to the left side. Just get another angle here just in case you're trying to see.
We lean the center of the ribs, so like just below the heart, to the left thigh. And then as we lean the center of the ribs to the left thigh, we walk the hands over to the right. It's going to be tempting to place the weight of our torso on the right thigh, but actually try to lean it to the left. As you stretch your left shoulder towards your ear, you're going to feel a deep stretch along the underside of your left armpit, along the sides of your ribs, maybe even the sides of the waistline, depending. The reason why you wouldn't feel it so deep in the waistline right now is because you're in deep hip flexion, kind of pulling that fascia, creating some slack there, making it easier on you. However, some of you still might feel a stretch in the waistline. All right, come back to center. Wiggle the ribs a little side to side, and then just check in now. Relax your arms. Check in with the experience internally, sensationally in the back. Okay, come to all fours, hands and knees.
You can arch the back and look up. Exhale, round the spine, gaze towards the navel. Inhale, arch and look up. Exhale, round.
Inhale, arch and look up.
As you exhale, come to child's pose. We're going to do some big movements of the arms.
As you come forward again, all fours, inhale, take your right hand, sweep it back,
And then a big opening twist, lateral flexion here at the ending point, and then release.
Child's pose. Same thing on the left side. Inhale, come forward, drag the left arm back, and really reach through your fingers. As you get to this last point here is the big side flexion, and then come all the way back.
Inhale, right side, swim. Open it up, and then stretch really long, and then come back.
Inhale, forward.
Exhale, back. Inhale, forward. Exhale, back.
Left side, inhale. All right, come forward to all fours, hands and knees, and tuck the toes.
Arch the low back and come to downward facing dog.
Take a breath in. If you need to pedal out the legs, you're welcome to. Breath out. Okay, now bend your knees, turn your toes to the left, heels to the right, As you bend your knees, kind of stick your bum up to the sky like a back bend and wag your tail to the right. Press your ribs a little towards the left side. So middle ribs to the left side, and that will open up your left waistline. Breathe in here and breathe out. One more inhale. Come back through the center. We'll pause in down dog for a moment. Just feel, probably give yourself a little scoliosis as you wait. You'll notice that one side is shorter than the other. And we seek to balance that out a little bit by turning the heels and toes the other direction. So toes to the right, heels to the left. And you can use your left hand to help. It'll nudge your shoulder blade into your ribs. So you press your ribs to the right. A little back bend, so you are creating a slight anterior tilt like we did last class. And breathing into the right waistline. Okay, come back to center. Take a moment and notice the shortening along the left side, lengthening on the right. All right, step your right foot to the front of the mat. Come onto your fingertips. Take a breath. Now let's take the left hand off to the left, onto the wood here. And with your left hand, you can you can push down in such a way that slides the right ribs up to the sky. Do you see that? Let me see if maybe this is a better angle. So here's just kind of like getting in the pose. But watch, I'm gonna push until this center point lifts up to the sky, and that's gonna start to lengthen the obliques on this side and shorten them or strengthen them on the bottom side. So I'm using a whole, like even my shoulder muscles on the left side to push down, and using my obliques on the bottom waistline here to push the middle of the rib cage or the bottom of the rib cage up. Whoop. Then you can take your arm over your behind your head or over your ear, trying to bow the spine. So it's not just, it is a back bend, but it's not just a back bend, it's a big side bend. So I'm not here, but here. Lift the hips up higher and really lift the center of the right rib cage, or I should say center of the back, because it's more like the lower rib cage here, just kind of below that spiritual gangster logo here. It's not a product placement. Okay, and then release. Let's inhale, straighten through the front leg. And just exhale, bend. We can keep the spine as is. Inhale, straighten through the front leg. Exhale, bend. One more time. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. All right. Step the left foot forward, right foot back. Right hand over to the right. The right hand over to the right. Start to tilt over onto your right hand. So you open your chest, so your chest is facing the front of your yoga mat. Okay, and then, you know, it's good to kind of feel a difference, like sag your hips down, that's gonna be hip flexor stretch, but you lift your hips up, and then you have greater opportunity to now press the left ribs up and over. Remember that steering wheel thing? Here, the underside, the right ribs should squeeze in to the midsection, to the spine, as the left ribs open up, and you do like a circular action of your torso. You can see the side ribs are lifting, not just here, right? This is more of a diagonal, but here I press this section up to the sky, and that's using my shoulder muscles and my obliques behind down here, my QL, quadratus lumborum. So the underside of the rib cage is pushing up to the sky, creating this opening along the left side. I don't have any room here, but it's the best I can do. Hand could be behind the head. Okay, and release. Straighten through the front leg on the inhale, look forward, keep the back as is. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend.
All right, let's just step the right foot forward. Come to a half lift on the inhale. Pause here. Let's get connected to just a remembrance or reminder of last class. Push the heels out isometrically. That will activate your outer hip muscles. Lift your chest up, get a little more strong in the back muscles. Lean forward a little bit here. One more breath. And bend the elbows, bow. As you bow, kind of think of it as if there's a weight on your head pulling you straight down towards the ground. Then your midsection, what we did last time was try to fill out your upper back. So pull the front ribs towards your spine, and that will create spinal flexion. Okay. Same thing we're doing today. So wherever, basically, you think of the center of the back and you kind of push it out into a forward fold. Today we're doing the center of the kind of the back and pushing it sideways to do a side flexion or side bend. In the back bend, we'll do the same thing. Center of the back, we'll push it forward to create a back bend. So it's all basically the same idea, kind of having a target point, the center of the spine, or the, more or less the center of the back here. All right, hands to the hips. Create an arch, a back bend, and then squeeze your legs in to rise up the rest of the way to stand. Tadasana, roll open the collarbones, lift the skull on top of the pelvis. Take a breath. Inhale, reach the arms up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow to the earth, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Left foot steps back. Right foot's in front. Place the hands on the front thigh, come up and pause. Okay, one of the muscles we'll have to get some length out of is the psoas muscle, so we'll come up upright with the posture. In fact, you can bend your back knee for a moment and come vertical with your torso. You can feel kind of this verticalness. And then now you can try to keep your torso don't do too much of a back bend right now. Try to straighten the back leg while your front rib cage comes into more of a flat back. So straighten through the back leg as your rib cage comes into a flat back. Now take your arms up. And get longer by taking your left arm and pulling your left shoulder up towards your ear. Now get longer on the right side. Climb your right rib cage up higher, right hand up higher, right shoulder up higher. And you can wiggle a little bit side to side to get up taller and taller. Back leg straight. Take a full breath in. And open up warrior two. Okay, hands on the hips. Move your groins back. And then just activate your legs. Pull your feet toward each other. You'll feel your inner thighs engage. Keep that. Take the arms out to the sides. And right now we're just going to focus on the midsection. So take your left hand, place it on the ribs, which is essentially like just below where this logo is, where the solar plexus region is. That's kind of like the center of the back, close enough for our purposes right now. You're going to slide it forward and back. Forward and back. Your pelvis will move as a result, but you see how I'm kind of doing this side bend here? And now I'm doing the side bend here. So eventually you can take your hand off of your ribs, but it's very helpful at first to feel this lateral deviation, which we're going to need, but we want to make sure we're going in the proper direction. So to go into now what's going to be reverse warrior, we laterally deviate the ribs to the right, then lift the right rib cage up, right armpit up, right shoulder up, and don't just fall down the backside. Send your weight forward and up. Forward and up. Slight turn of the heart to the sky will give you a bit more space where the ribs and pelvis meet. And slow to release. Turn the back heel up. Inhale, straighten through the front leg. Exhale this time and bow. Let's enjoy a breath in.
And out. Bend the front knee. Step to down dog. Forward to plank pose, inhale. Lower the knees, lower all the way to the ground. All right, so now a little bit fun stuff for you, especially those of you who've done this before. We come into three-part cobra. I'm gonna back up just a little bit, maybe easier to see. Inhale, lift the front body, everybody. Take your feet a little wider. Now as you exhale, gentle turn to the left and send your right ribs forward, stretching the right waistline. Now hold here, so your right ribs send forward, okay, and you're looking slightly to the left. Stretch back through your right toes especially, and pull your right ribs away from your hip. Take a full breath, pull your belly long. And then slow, melt the right ribs to the ground. Relax the hands, we'll do the other side in a second. Okay, here we go. So like three-part cobra, we start out with a lift of the front body. And then we pull the left waistline long as we gently look to the right. So literally pull your left shoulder, left ribs up higher as you look to the right. You can even lean more to your left hip. Reach back through your left foot. Get long in the left waistline. And slowly release. Okay, we'll pause here, take a breath. Now we're going to utilize that to add on to our cobra actions, our three-part cobra. So we'll be more like a five-part cobra. But take your fingertips wide. On the inhale, lift the front body. As you exhale, we'll soften and look a little to the right, a little to the left, and kind of try to get longer in the belly on both sides. And how do you get longer? Your hips stay where they are and your ribs go forward to the front of the mat. Then suck your abdomen in until you feel your ribs kind of flare out and lift up. Let's do one more breath in here. And release. Let's take one rest, take a breath in. Come to all fours, hands and knees. Tuck your toes, lift up to downward facing dog. Take a breath in and out. Right leg to the sky on the inhale. Now open up the pelvis and bend the knee. And we get a nice stretch into the right waistline. Breathe into the right side. Inhale, straighten and slowly square the hip. Step right foot forward. Rise, high lunge, inhale. Open up, warrior two. Slide the rib cage further forward, then lift the belly up. Reverse warrior, press the center of the bow forward, and exhale, lean forward to come out of it, hands to the ground. Pivot the back heel up, square the pelvis. On the inhale, step forward, half lift. Press the backs of the legs apart and bow forward. Inhale, rise to the sun, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow to the earth, Uttanasana. Inhale, halfway lift. Right foot steps back as you exhale. Hands on the hips, just come up. Lunge preparation. Again, you can bend the back knee. And we're just going to stretch a little bit in the abdominals and particularly the psoas. So you pull the front ribs back. As you bend the front knee, a little bit of posterior tilt is going to help us with this stretch today. And then you'll try to keep the posterior tilt, so tuck the tail, round the back slightly. Keep this as you straighten through the back leg. It's going to be a big strengthener
for the quads back there, and also a stretch for your hip flexors. It's a bit tough, okay? Then try to free up your rib cage by lifting the right and the left side. Let your shoulders lift up. Right side, left side, wiggle like you're climbing. Reach for the next, like, kind of rock. Kind of go higher, 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 higher. Reach all the way up. Back leg straight and strong. One more breath. And open up. Move the pelvis back, groins back. Part of that is because it helps your pelvis move properly. Okay, so groins back, pelvis back, and now pull your feet toward each other isometrically. Keeping that engagement, arms out to the sides. Take one breath in and out. Now I suggest, you know what, let's just take both hands to the ribs. Let's slide the ribs back towards the back hip, what most people would do in a reverse warrior, something like this. Okay, and then just slide the ribs forward towards the front hip, which is what I'm going to ask you to be doing. Okay, and then slide back, forward, back, forward. And you can now accentuate pelvic movement if you want. As you slide back, send your left hip up. As you slide forward, send your right hip up. You'll start to notice now you're doing lateral flexion, okay? So now send your hips forward, and as you go forward, turn your chest a little to the sky, slight back bend, and expand left arm and left waistline, left ribs, everything upward. So you start to feel a stretch along the left side while you're sending it, not back like this, forward, weight forward as you lift it up. Okay, slowly place both hands on either side of the front foot, pivot the back heel up, square the pelvis. Inhale, straighten through the front leg. Lengthen first, get everything set up. And then when you're ready, you can bow. Just enjoy a breath. Inhale, bend the front knee. Step to down dog. Forward to plank pose, inhale. Lower chaturanga all the way down. Slide hands and feet wide, three-part cobra, inhale. On the exhale, think a little look to the left, a little look to the right, get long, melted. Then pull the belly up. Exhale and release. All fours, hands and knees. And pause. We're going to start with our first strengthener of the side body. You'll take your right forearm down and bend your knees, taking a modified side plank variation. And your elbow can be out a little in front of the shoulder if you like. Get a little more leverage there. And all we're going to do, I'm sure you've done this before, is pull the right hip and right ribs toward each other. As a result, we send the ribs up specifically right here, the middle of the back, the center of the bow here, up to the sky. So right now we're in a side bend the other direction. We're going to flip that. Instead of this side of the ribs being down, this side of the ribs is going to try to go up. A slight back bend. Here we go. Push down into your knee and try to stretch this left rib cage as high to the sky as possible, potentially stretching the left arm over your ear, and then slowly come back and return to starting position. I'm a little bit long on my stance. Okay, and then we do it again. Instead of this rib cage going down, we send this rib cage to the sky and reach the arm over the ear to get really elongated in the left side body, and then come back down. Let's do one more. And switch sides. So bend the knees, feet. Let's maybe give you another, I don't know if that would work. Let's try, yeah, that might be good. Okay, so the center of the ribs here are down at this time. We're gonna try to move them up to the sky. And if I can just move this out of the way. Thank you, don't need you. Sorry, something distracting my screen. So we're gonna go right ribs up to the sky by pulling the left ribs towards the sky, okay? Pushing the left ribs into the spine. Try to get as long as you can. Of course, you have gravity to contend with and the shape, so you're not gonna get as high as you might like, but certainly try. Okay, then come back down. If any of you are having struggles with your shoulder, start with it back like this and kind of put your hand behind your head. It's a great start. Eventually you can start to get your shoulder to really reach and rotate, and maybe even pressing your head into your arm might help. Let's try again. Side ribs, squeeze into the spine. A little back bend can help get a little more range of motion, and hopefully if you squeeze your hip and ribs towards each other, you're gonna get oblique muscles and side body muscles like QL might be active there, and some of your back muscles, okay? We'll do one more time. Here we go. Side bend. Get as tall as you can. Use your obliques by pressing the right ribs to the sky, or really pressing your left ribs to the sky, your bottom ribs up, and then release. Okay, good start. That's the awkward variation. Typically the easiest to balance, the most hardest to do a side bend. Okay, come to all fours, hands and knees. And tuck the toes for downward facing dog. In your downward dog, please turn your toes to the left and stretch your left arm long like so. You could bend your knees if you like, or you can keep them straight, but really get a nice long left side body stretch. Press the ribs a little to the left, the mid ribs. And then we switch. Turn the toes to the right, heels to the left, and try to get your right arm long as you can. You can see I'm tenting the fingers and walking it forward, and press the middle of your back to the right. All right, come back to center. And let's take a breath in our down dog. And a breath out. Please take the left leg to the sky on the in-breath. Step left foot, sorry, don't do that. Bend the knee, open up the hip. We don't want to miss this glorious stretch. Send the ribs a little to the left side of the yoga mat. Straighten the legs, slowly square the hip. Now step left foot forward. Rise, high lunge. Open up, warrior two. Again, slide the left ribs forward, then pick the left waistline up. A little bit of a back bend will help increase the spinal lateral flexion, and then release, hands to the ground. Slowly turn the pelvis. When you do these side bends, you don't want to torque the pelvis rapidly. Step forward, halfway lift. Bend the knees and press the heels out like we did last time. And then let's take a shoulder stretch. Take the hands, interlace the hands behind the back. Open up the shoulders. All right. Hands to the floor. Inhale, halfway lift. Press the backs of the legs apart. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway lift. Get light on the fingers so you're using your back muscles. You want to warm them up. Exhale, bow. One more time. Exhale, bow. Hands to the hips, arch the back, rise all the way up. I have to just lighten this camera. I always forget that it needs to be adjusted every time. I wish it didn't. Hopefully that's lighter now. All right, so come to Utkatasana chair pose. Bend the knees, feet wide, hip width apart or so. Push the heels out isometrically. Find your abductor muscles, what we were doing last time. This will just help kind of give your sacrum some space. Send the center of the bow forward like we're doing a back bend, which we'll get into another class, but the idea is the center goes forward like this and the hips go back. Okay, that's gonna form a nice back bend. You'll feel both sides of your back muscles. When you move your hips back, your ribs forward, and your chest up, you'll feel both sides of your back muscles engage, okay? And to do a side bend, we just engage one side over the other, or at least more than the other. Slide your ribs to the left, and that will give you a side bend to the right. Give you another angle. So we get into this back bend, which you saw. Slide the ribs to the left, side bend to the right. Come back, slide your ribs to the right, side bend to the left. Hand behind the head and press the head back too. It'll give you a little more space there, and it might stretch your obliques a little bit more along the right side. Okay, ribs forward, side bend to the, or press the ribs to the left to side bend to the right. So press the ribs left, side bending right. And again, a little back bend, and then hand behind the head, press your head back and keep your hips back. If you press your head and hips back, you're gonna feel a nice lengthening along the obliques here. Okay, come back to center. Side or press the ribs to the right, side bend to the left, a little back bend by pressing the head back and moving the butt back. Turn the chest a little to the sky. Okay, come back slowly to center. And you know what we'll do right now while we're, ooh, that feels nice. Okay, hopefully you feel that strengthening in your back body muscles here. Okay, we'll do a little more advanced variation. We'll take Kali Mudra, index finger like this, and we'll point up to the sky. You know, you can't see that, so it looks like this, just pointing your index finger to the sky. Now, send your rib cage to the right side so that your weight goes into your right foot, and then even get your left foot off to the side and send your rib cage over to the right, and then try to pick up your belly. Try to get like as if you're trying to pull your rib cage off of your hips. Inflate the rib cage and pick it up until you feel lengthening along the whole right side of the body and a lifting, a decompression of the spine away from itself. Okay, then slowly come back. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Shoulders to the ears, lift up nice and tall. That's going to ensure the lengthening. Lean into your left hip. Slide the right ribs to the right. Slight turn or slight back bend, slight pressing of the chest forward, I should say. Don't think back bend, send chest and ribs forward. And then your right foot can get light, move it out to the right. Slight back bend by pressing the heart forward towards the front side of your body. And slide the ribs to the left. Okay, slow. Come back to both feet. Release. Tadasana. Now, for some of you, this might be working a little too deep. So if I'm saying anything that's encouraging you to go too deep for yourself, make sure you back off, get the concept, and then over time you can increase the depth. All right. So let's not chase the depth, but let the depth be the result of the actions. And again, there is such thing as going too fast into something. Like you might find that the technique actually really works, and you might go too deep for yourself. So always exercise on the side of caution, going slowly into the depth, but try to really apply the action. Okay, chair pose, bend the knees, move your hips back. Let's get the back muscles engaged again. So as your hips go back, your midsection goes forward, and start to lift the belly. If you're not sure, literally lift the belly from this position to this position, lift it up. Here comes Tito. Okay. Take the arms in a cactus shape, lift the heart, look up. Exhale, bow, Uttanasana, forward fold. Press the backs of the legs apart. Inhale, halfway lift. Step the left foot back as you exhale. And this time we're gonna place the left knee down onto the ground. Bring the hands on the front thigh. Move everything forward and slide your left ribs to the left and take your left arm behind your ear. Optionally, you can take the right elbow and kind of pull it into your waistline and send your heart forward, okay? Maybe the right hand touches the ground. For many of you, that's not going to be accessible, so you could use a block in that case. But the two actions is that the midsection is going forward and to the left, rather than trying to fall down to grab the block. Let me see if I can show that. So you might think like, oh, let me reach the block like this. Okay, that's different than sliding the rib cage to the left. And as a result, you'll feel the side bend and the arm will just get lower as a result of doing the side bend properly. Okay, release, slow. And here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna turn the, well actually just take your hands on the inside of the right foot, straighten through both legs. So you're in a straight leg lunge and bow to the inside of the right leg. Back thigh, turn it in a little bit. Let's do one more breath. Okay, bend the front knee. Walk the hands back to the center. Step forward on the inhale. Is it a little bit like a rotation move? Yeah, there's a little rotation that's happening for sure. Think about a steering wheel in the section, in the midsection. Like a steering wheel, when you turn it, you see how the top goes this way, the middle goes down and around. Like there's a directionality, a circular movement where if you think of dialing into this, into it rather than just kind of falling over into it, that's really the best way to look at it. And as long as you feel like your weight goes away from the side that you're bending to, okay, that's the key. If you're bending to the left, move your weight to the right, and specifically from the center of your body. Move the center of your body to the right if you're bending to the left, and you'll open the right side more that way because you won't be compressing your ribs onto your pelvis. All right, so inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway lift. Please step the right foot back, right knee comes down. Okay, again, come up to your front thigh. So if you just kind of, most people what they would do to take their left hand down is they would just kind of lean and then run out of room. And this is effortful, but one, just slide the midsection forward like cobra pose. So open up the front body, so you're in a back bend. Then move the weight towards, like if you were at a wall, you see this is actually quite nice. If you lean towards the direction that's opening. So if my right side is opening, I lean to the right side and automatically the left hand gets quite low as a result. But if I try to reach the left hand down, that's where I run into compression. So I lean to the right and the circle happens. The top side of it goes up and over like so, right? But I'm leaning my weight, especially from the center here, to the right side, creating that side bend, that lateral flexion. Of course, the side that's bending, or the side that we call flexion, is the left side, but I'm really focusing my efforts on moving towards my right. Okay, slow to unwind out of these postures. We do a straight leg. Let me just check the question. Straight leg, forward fold. Is it a little bit like, no, okay, I answered that question already, sorry. So we bow to the inside of the left leg. Your feet can be a little wider. All right, walk back to the center. Bend the front knee, step forward. Halfway lift. Exhale and bow. Okay, inhale, halfway lift again. Step the left foot back. We're gonna do side angle legs, or warrior two legs. So front heel bisects the back arch. And pull your feet toward each other. Take an inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, bend the elbows and bow. This is not for the side bending purposes at all. This is for just going to stretch out the inner thighs and hamstrings a bit more. A few more breaths.
Now come back to center. Let's do side plank on the left side, but with a big side bend. So you'll take your right foot. If you need to, you can use a kickstand, like right foot in front. Otherwise, take your right foot on top of the left. And you see how my right hand is down here. You can see it's just giving me balance. And what I'm gonna do is send my midsection and my ribs up to the sky. A little bend of the knees helps to turn the chest to the sky and really laterally flex. So you see I bent my knees, I turned my chest to the sky. I'm like I'm in chair pose here. So I'm sending my left ribs up as high as I can and a little back bend. Like with the chair pose, my hips are back slightly, but my side body is really long by pressing the right ribs up to the sky as much as I can. And then at that point, you might straighten your legs and you're like a side back bend, okay? Come on out. Let me show you at another angle. We'll do the right side too. Normally I would wait, but I think having a couple of times of working this out might be really nice. So we'll do the right. If you want to watch this and then do it, you can. So what I would do is I'd come into a side plank and I'd lift my left ribs up as high as I can and hips as well. Bend the knees and start to turn it like chair pose. I bend my knees and arch the back. Then I press the left ribs as high to the sky as I can. This might be for like where you stop with bent knees, hips, butt back a little bit and ribs high. Some of you might start to stretch the legs a little bit harder on the upper body, a little more strength required. There's a big opening in the side body. And bend the knees to come out. Okay, so give that a shot on that side if you were just watching. Can you apply this concept to side angle or triangle in reference to when you should bring your hand up to your leg or thigh? So yes. So the way that I do triangle and side angle, well, side angle I usually do as a side bend, but triangle I usually do as a flat spine, and there's reasons for that. But yes, of course you can apply. But my only thing is, we'll do triangle in a second. My only thing with what a lot of people do with triangle pose is they kind of fall like this into the posture and kind of collapse the hip or collide into the hip, like overstabilize the pelvis, turn it into a lateral bend. So what I do is I mobilize the pelvis and then I create, we'll do that in a second. So let's come back to Uttanasana. When you're done with your side plank, we'll do another side plank as well. But we gotta take an inhale, halfway lift. And step your right foot back. Again, front heel bisects back arch. Walk to the inside of your left foot. Let's take a breath. And hips back, groins back, bow to the inside of your left leg. And let's just take a couple of breaths here. All right, now let's go back to that open version of Vashisthasana. And you know, it might be your first time really exploring this wild variation of it. So what you can do is, again, bend both knees like so. You know, get into this bent knee position, butt back, heart forward into a back bend, and then start to turn the chest and lift up to the sky. Maybe you just go in a wild thing, might be easier, or create a kickstand back there, or you can stretch the left leg long and maybe stretch the left arm long into a big opening through the front body and the side body. So it's like a back bend, side bend. Okay, bend the knees to come back, keeping the hips back. Dip the pelvis back to transition. You go through like, you know, that crouching position here. And you go over, you see my butt goes back, it stays back. And then I send the right ribs to the sky as I open the chest. Optionally, foot comes back like a kickstand, like Wild Thing, or you can stretch the arm and the hand in opposite directions, getting as long as possible. Think about reaching apart, the hand and the foot apart from each other, away from one another. And then you bend the knees,
Oops, don't come out like that fast, sorry. Bend the knees, and then slow. I did the accidental slingshot. All right, come on down. Let's take toes tucked. We'll just do a side bend here. Move your ribs forward, hand behind the head, right hand behind the head, and the left shoulder back. And all you're gonna focus on is your right rib cage pressing up to the sky. Let's come into half camel. Lengthen your right belly and press your rib cage as high to the sky as you can. Look down to the left. And then slow hips come back. Once you're seated, then you can release the spine. We do the right hand on the heel. Lift the left ribs up high, left hand behind the head. Press the left ribs to the sky, unlocking the ribs from the pelvis. Look down and to the right. Slowly move the hips back and come on down. All right, let's do triangle pose. Come to stand. And here's what we'll do is, you know what, from standing, let's do this. From standing at the top of the mat, step your left foot back. So both feet are facing straight forward a little bit, like the left foot is turned out, but more or less still to the front. Now bend the front knee and bow like you're in a runner's position here, okay? So you're in warrior one, more or less. Heels can be in alignment for this pose. So let me just show you another angle, something like this, okay? You see the back leg? Now you straighten through the front leg. And what we'll do today is, just since the question was there, is you press your front foot down into the ground and turn your chest. And from this posture, I really like to activate the obliques as if I'm trying to do a side bend up to the sky rather than falling with gravity down, okay? So what I do is as I push my feet down and away from each other, I start to pull my left ribs towards my pelvis and start to turn the chest into actually not a side bend, but using the oblique muscles and back muscles to keep my spine straight. You can take the hand on the outside of the foot or the inside of the foot today. Either one will be beneficial, whatever your preference is. But trying to use the oblique muscles to pull the left ribs and hip toward one another so that I'm not in a side bend. And pressing the feet down and away from each other, you're gonna feel some strength there. That's one way that I like to do triangle. There's many other variations, but let's just get this one down. Step forward, we'll switch sides. So your back toes are turned in a decent amount. Heels are in line with each other. As I straighten the leg, I press the feet, the front foot down and forward, the back foot down and back, and I come up to a lifted position. Left fingertips or hand on block is great too. And all I'm doing is I'm using my left obliques to do a side bend up and then turn. And I'm using some of the back muscles here to create that turn, that twist. What you can do is pull your right shoulder back to help out with that. Okay, so now to this degree, my right obliques are strengthened. My hips are really strong, pushing down into the feet and outward, and then spinally rotating. Those of you with a lot of spinal rotation, your hand will have to come on the inside of the foot, or your hand can be on the outside as well. Up to you. But I'm trying to neutralize the spine via the strength of the obliques. And that's just because what will tend to happen for most people, and just one way of doing this pose, there's many variations that I like, but one way that I like to do it is really exploring the strength of the obliques like I'm doing a sit-up, as if I'm trying to side bend up to the sky. I activate the oblique muscles. Okay, and then slowly release, bend the knee. And now let's come to a seated position. I think our inner thighs are starting to get ready for this. All right. So you'll take your left heel to your groin, right leg out to the side. I guess I should mirror you. Take your left heel to the groin, right leg out to the side, and lift your hips up and try to pull this knee out to the side more. And simply for this variation, try to press your legs apart and you'll feel a stretch in your inner right leg. We'll just bow first forward and you can slide your butt back. Just here to get the inner thigh stretch at first. Press your two legs away from one another. Your right knee out to the right. And come on up. Switch sides. Right heel to the groin. I'm not sure if I said my rights and lefts wrong on the other side. I forgot I was mirroring. Press your bent knee out. Press your straight leg out. Push them both out. Slide the butt back a little bit. Allow you to bow to the inside of your right leg. Your left leg, I apologize. And all we're doing is just stretching the adductors along the inner left leg, the straight leg. We're probably also getting a little bit of a stretch maybe in your inner right leg. Come on up. All right, so now Parshva Shirshasana. Here's the challenge is when you take your left heel into the groin, right leg out to the side, is we want to send the center of this forward, and maybe a side angle might be beneficial. Okay, so we send the center of it forward like this first. Okay, in order to do that, I use my hip flexors, my TFL, the muscles that go into anterior tilt and my back muscles, okay? Then I come down by pressing the right ribs up to the sky. So don't just fall. That hurts when I do that too. So don't just, I'll do it slow, try not to hurt myself, but don't just fall like this, but side bend. So shift the ribs to the right, then, and so forward and to the right. And think about not trying to get to the foot at first, but pressing the rib cage to the sky, and then circularly you can reach the top arm up and over and really get the shoulder to the ear. Okay, so this is much better in my opinion to start off with, because you teach yourself how to press the ribs up to the sky, whereas most people try to go for the foot and then they just tip the pelvis and do that lateral deviation. So you want to actually inhibit yourself from grabbing the foot at first. It will deepen your lateral flexion. Eventually, you can keep going in that circle. The arm runs out of room. Okay, and then you're here. But if you reach for the foot, guarantee you'll screw up the lateral flexion of your spine, because you'll just deviate and maybe just pull the pelvis with you. And I even feel it. I feel like my sacrum gets kind of twisted and cocked, and my low back kind of gets a little cranky when I try to show the way of not doing it. But yeah, come on up if you're there. Okay, so you want to make sure that you learn how to do side bends properly. It will feel great and delicious when you do. It doesn't feel good when you don't do it right. And it's hard, of course, when you're learning these things. You will make mistakes, so you go through these little discomforts while you're trying to learn them. Okay, so press your legs down and out, switching the sides. And again, we have to get our pelvis in more anterior tilt and get our low back in that arched position. Then instead of just kind of leaning to the right, lean to the left and open up your left ribs. Yeah, and then we create this wheel-like experience where I'm trying to really press the underside of my right ribs towards the left ribs, so that it's the opposite for you. The underside of your left ribs towards your right ribs up to the sky. I'm really struggling with this mirroring thing that I chose to do. Guess wasn't the best choice. You get the idea though. You press the top ribs up towards the sky more. You limit the range of motion. You come out of the posture a little bit by pressing your right heel down. You can even use that leverage of your right leg to send your left ribs to the sky. Then some of you might want to reach your right hand back, turn the chest a little more like a back bend, send the middle belly forward, butt back. And if you go more into a back bend, you can then start to
side bend even more, and eventually your top arm might touch your foot for some sort of party or celebration, I suppose. Okay, and then come on up. So unfortunately, a lot of us will try to achieve shapes, and in that attempt to achieve, we do the wrong actions. All right, so let's just, if you think about it as a lateral flexion and aim to laterally flex rather than, excuse me, aim to grab a foot, you'll probably do it better. All right, let's do a little spinal twist. Take your left leg over your right, twist. Come back around, a little counter twist, high Tito. Switch which leg's on top. Twist to the right. Hi bud, we're still doing yoga class. Cute boy. If I let you out, you're gonna wanna come right back in, I know. Okay, come back, do a counter twist, slow. Okay, and come onto your back. Let's take a couple of bridge lifts in case you did anything. So, if, you've got some sort of imbalances in your back and you go too much one direction, certainly you could throw some vertebrae off. So what we want to do is put them back in place before completing the yoga practice. Hi, buddy. So what you'll do is send your butt back into an arch position and then send your hips to the sky. And with your thumbs, you can palpate the low back, just press it up to the sky. And you can use your thumbs to actually initiate a little bit more movement. So if you press your thumbs strongly into the muscles on the sides of your backs until your low back goes up higher, you'll send the low back vertebra back into their space. Hi. Come back down, take a break. Tito's just loving me over here. Hi, sweet boy. I love you too. Let's do another bridge lift. Form the arch in your back. In case you can't hear me, do another bridge lift. Press your hips to the sky. Oh, you're just really loving me right now. Sweet man. And then slowly come back on down. I'm a fan of keeping the back muscles warm as we go into Shavasana. So rather than doing a stretch of the back muscles, you can either just let the knees knock in from here or stretch the legs out into Shavasana if you prefer. But I think keeping the back muscles with that little bit of warmth is great. Let's take Shavasana. I'm just being eaten by the dog. Okay, so I'm going to shut my mic off so you don't hear him licking me. And if you want an extended Shavasana, then of course press pause and I'll bring you out in a little bit. Hi.
Bring your awareness back to your breath. Waken the fingers and toes. Stretch the arms overhead. Come up to a seated position. Place the hands at heart center, and we just take a moment of gratitude for this body and this practice that has been passed down to us so that we can explore this body, the mind, and the breath that is within it. We bow into the heart that pulses inside this chest. Thank you all so very much for your practice, for your efforts. Namaste. Sorry for the tapping of the dog toes on the floor. One quick thing I should mention, I forgot, which would have been nice, is you can do a pigeon pose to stretch out the hips. If you're, when doing side bends and also twists for some people, it could throw off the sacrum slightly. And what you can do to relieve that is do a hip stretch like pigeon pose on each side, and that can really help you out. So if you feel any sort of discomfort in your low back or around your waistline, make sure you do some pigeon pose. Let me just check in with these. Okay, so Deborah says, thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. See you on Monday. Hugs from Cologne. Awesome. We will be practicing tomorrow, Saturday, by the way, for those of you that are able to. I'll see you tomorrow. Kristen says, the sides of my low back, thank you. I got back to the 11th class of Vitality Immersion. Sometimes because I have some of, it has some of these stretches. Okay, so the Vitality Immersion has some side bends. Cool. This was deeper, thank you. Awesome. Dag says, thank you so much. Many challenging poses, but for me, the hardest pose seems to be Virabhadrasana 2. Moving the chest from right to left. Yeah, cool. Johanna Frank, thank you so very much too. Thanks, Debbie. Great class. Thank you so much. And might as well do the other side while we're here. Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you, Vicky. Appreciate that. Glad you enjoyed. My hips need a big stretch. I've been doing a lot of wood chopping, realizing how tight I am right now. It was great again. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you tomorrow. Awesome. Thanks, Kim. See you tomorrow. Nina says, thank you. Feel really bendy right now. Cool. Mikhail says, have a good day. Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Mikhail. Let's see, Howdy Mo. Let me remember your name. Howdy Mo is Annie. Okay. Thanks, Annie. See you tomorrow. Sabui, thank you so very much. Glad you're feeling great. Oh, hips are tight. A lot of log lifting, splitting going on in my house right now, preparing for winter. All right, everybody. Have a good one and look forward to seeing you tomorrow if you're practicing this live. Otherwise, see you on the next one when that comes around for you. Take care. Bye-bye.